everyone, Rascal here.
And Mama, welcome to our podcast.
Today we're covering another Marvel anime franchise. This time, Iron Man, The Rise of Technovore.
Now, this movie sequel to the Iron Man anime, the young and insane tech genius...
Insane!
Ezekiel Stane.
Insane.
Has
emphasis on insane.
A new techno-organic armor that seemingly outclasses Iron Man. And when Stane unleashes the terrorist attack during the launch of Tony Stark's newest satellite, Iron Man is blamed, so he must evade S.H.I.E.L.D's manhunt, S.H.I.E.L.D, and find a way to clear his name.
Right. Before we get into that, be sure to like, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get updates on future podcasts and World of Paws videos.
I have 2 words. Levi Ackerman!
Yes.
Matthew Mercer does Iron Man!
Yes. And I was surprised to see that because it was Adrian Pasdar for the series, because I thought it was in the Earth's Mightiest Heroes series, and then I think for the other Avengers series, I was surprised they had changed it. Maybe they wanted another anime recognized actor for it.
Possibly. Matthew Mercer did an excellent job as always. It was less Levi Ackerman sounding. He really seemed to sound more like Adrian Pasdar. But you could tell at times, you could hear Levi Ackerman coming through. Right. And then you also had Norman Reedus from The Walking Dead as the Punisher.
Yeah.
Frank Castle. They both were cast in the perfect roles. I mean, Norman Reedus was perfect as the Punisher.
Right.
He absolutely was. And then we had a few favorites we know, like Kerry Walgren, Troy Baker, Tara Platt,
Liam O'Brien,
and Dave Wittenberg. So this was an odd movie in the sense that it was all action, very little plot. It was constantly just going and going and going and going.
Right. And we kind of thought like we expected to be a lot of action because the Iron Man anime sort of had its on-off thing, like action, plot, action, plot. It would kind of go one after the other until it got towards the end. For the movie, it seemed to have like no off switch. It would immediately start. It will start up with action, and then it'll be lots of action, like maybe 10 minutes in a row, and then he'll talk a little bit, and then he's got to run off somewhere else, and then there's more action, there's more talking, there's more action. It kind of goes back and forth between talking and action. But the thing is, you don't get that much of a story or the background for Technovore or Stane until it gets closer to the end of the film, when they finally tell you why he's doing this, who's behind it, and their version of Technovore.
Now I have to say, Technovore in this movie was pretty awesome in terms of the character they made him and how he operated and the animation that was done for him.
Right.
It was pretty cool. He was the villain, but the way in which he transformed and worked was pretty cool. And he was voiced by Eric Bauza.
Right. Because for what I've seen for the other version of Technovore was like animal-like, which is why they call it Technovore. Like if it was an animal, it was like this big animal that ate machines. That was like the whole term where it came from. It was sort of mindless. All it did was eat things, eat technology, eat circuitry, anything electronic or technology it would eat. But in here, it was more sentient. It wanted a purpose. It was almost like Venom in a way. It wanted to take over and turn everything like it. Like I said, like Venom. So they gave it an anime twist where it was humanized and it was even more of a threat intelligently rather than just being a mindless, like something like a Nomu or something. It was more of a challenge for Tony intellectually, also combining with Ezekiel.
Right, because Ezekiel had nanites injected into his brain. And that's where he was already a genius, but then the nanites and them multiplying and building is what caused his crazy genius to develop and to display. And as you mentioned, it just started going off the rails, not making sense, and wanted to destroy all humans.
Yeah. And we also played out for the movie is that when you listen to the voice actors, or I'll get back to about the action stuff in a second, but there's one thing I mentioned about the voice actors. Around the time this came out, this is when the movies were still coming out fresh. They were This came out in 2013, so about a year after the Avengers and the first phase of the MCU. So this is when Marvel started to copy the MCU into all their animated stuff, and this movie is no different. You could tell with the voice actors that there weren't going to be any of the people from the cinematic movies, and most of them were even from the TV show. Now, a few were, like the ones doing Black Widow and Hawkeye, they were the same from the TV show. But this time when they had like Nick Fury, they had John Eric Bentley, who, now, you might not recognize him at first, but he's actually the voice of Fire Emblem in Tiger and Bunny. He just doesn't have his flamboyant way of speaking. But in here, he's trying to sound like Samuel Jackson.
Right.
So they tried to have all these people sound like the movie counterparts, which was a good effort in a way, but this was this, and it didn't seem forced here. So at least they were trying to have that familiarity with it. You know what Punisher would sound like, because he hadn't been put into the MCU yet. So at least it was something different.
True. And this movie, I think, was shorter than usual.
Yeah, it was about 90 minutes, I think. Yeah, it was an hour and 28 minutes. That was it. And I kind of expected a little more to happen. There was lots of action, but I was expecting more
Plot.
Yeah, plot to happen in the story instead of just action. Didn't mind the action, it's just you gotta stop to tell me something before you get into that.
Definitely. That would have been appreciated more, some more backstory and things like that.
Because what they came up with was really interesting.
Right, definitely. And again, as we mentioned, the voice actors were well cast. And I think I would have probably preferred, honestly, not just this one, but maybe a second movie that, and normally I'm not wanting to know about the villains. But I think in this one, because they made the villain story interesting, you know, injecting nanites into your brain, and then he turns into this, you know, brilliant being, and again, all the animation they had of how he transformed and stuff, it would have been interesting maybe to have a short movie for Technovore, maybe 60 minutes.
Like an OVA.
Yeah, that would have been great. I think that would have really added to this anime. It really would have been great to have.
Yeah, because you could tell there was effort put into it, but it seemed like all the focus was trying to make it this big, epic action film and compare it to the MCU, when really they should have just more focused on doing their own thing, just like they were doing for the anime series.
Right. And I have to say also for Technovore, Eric Bauza did a fantastic job, because you see the character go through these different emotions, and they all was coming through in his portrayal. I think for me, it wasn't a bad movie, but you hear me talking more about the villain Technovore, and they made the villain for this movie more interesting than Tony Stark.
Right. Tony was the same. I mean, there wasn't really anything to go into detail about him. I mean, in terms of how he is in the anime, yeah. I mean, his personality, yeah. Not wanting to kill Stane, yeah.
Right.
Wanting to do this thing in honor of his parents and his dad, yeah. Wanting to avenge War Machine when he got injured by Technovore because he was clearly a killer. Okay, but you didn't get much else out of Tony from other than what you know about Tony.
Right.
Nothing new was brought up about him. No development. Nothing new arc. Nothing really was there for him that was new.
But so much attention and storyline and more information and portrayal have been put into Technovore's character than the main character.
Right.
And that's why, again, you have us talking more about him than Tony Stark and Matthew Mercer voicing him.
Right.
Because it seems like maybe this particular movie was a vehicle for Technovore. Maybe at some point they did have intentions of having him in more anime movies, or even having his own shoot-off, which would have worked, because again, the story was so interesting.
Right.
But alas, it hasn't happened, and it didn't happen.
Right. And it's a shame because, like I said, it was a great idea. And, you know, for a movie like this, it seemed like they were kind of doing like maybe My Hero Academia, where they wanted like an extra story to go with the series, or Tiger and Bunny: The Rising, where you see what happened after the show ended. And this was like another big comeback for the show just
Right.
for this one film, and you see something really big that expands beyond a 30-minute episode. But unfortunately, this didn't do that. It had the potential to do it.
Definitely.
And the passion into it was there, but it was put into the wrong elements of trying to make it action and interesting, and it was more about fleshing out the villain than fleshing out Tony. And perhaps they felt like that because they done it all in the series, but they should have done it still for the movie, because the whole point of the movie is to do something really big that you couldn't do in a half hour and really put even more into the character and more ideas.
Yeah, now that being said, we still think you should give it a watch if you haven't seen it. It will be entertaining for you. It will be an entertaining hour and a half, and again, you get to hear some voice actors you're familiar with do some different characters. So, if you have seen Iron Man Rise of Technovore, let us know what you think in the comments below.
And be sure to like, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get updates on future podcasts and Mortal Pals videos.
Absolutely.
So thank you so much for watching. I'm S.H.I.E.L.D Entertainment.
And I'm on Entertainment.
Have a toontastic day.
Peace.
And the water sitting, flashing lights. Trying to walk around, man, who the hell are you? What you wanna do? Well, man, it's on you. Man, it's on you. Met her in my dreams, she was my queen. A castle in the mountaintops, rivers and streams. Plucking sunlight from the sky in my pocket. Give it to you later on in the form of a locket.